Crimson alerts erupted across the monitoring wall at 1 a.m. Leo Vance stood at Terminal 7 on the 22nd floor of Apex Cloud Tower, watching $100 million in investment fund databases lock solid. The incident tags screamed ransomware, but the memory graphs told a different story. Neat, identical waves climbing past 20,000 active Go routines. Leo had been monitoring Apex's cloud infrastructure for 3 years, always the night shift. He knew these systems. This was not external attack behavior. This was the system choking on itself. "This is not a breach," Leo muttered, pulling up the kernel logs. "The cleanup calls are stacking. Every thread is waiting." The operations center doors slammed open. Garrick Thorne strode in, flanked by 4 senior engineers and 2 security guards. The CTO's Italian suit was immaculate despite the hour. His hair was perfect. His expression was not. "Status," Garrick snapped at Martin Wu, the lead architect. Martin's face was pale. 38% of cluster capacity unresponsive, sir. Memory allocation climbing on every active node. We are seeing coordinated failure across. Leo stood. "Sir, it is not ransomware. The Go routine scheduler is deadlocking because..." Garrick's head whipped toward him. "Who authorized you to access diagnostic terminals? I monitor these systems every night. The pattern shows you are a junior infrastructure engineer." Garrick enunciated each word with precision. "Your job is hardware maintenance, rack servers, swap failed drives. You think attending University of Chicago for 2 years before dropping out makes you qualified to diagnose production kernel behavior?" Leo's grip tightened on the keyboard. The threads are waiting on a wait group that never releases. Every routine spawns cleanup that just hangs. It is right there in the trace logs. Garrick snatched the keyboard from Leo's hands and dropped it on the desk. Unauthorized access to production logs from a non-senior role is terminable. He gestured to the guards. "Collect his badge. You are making a mistake." Garrick stepped closer, his voice dropping. "The mistake was hiring someone who does not understand the difference between theory and enterprise reality." Behind Garrick's shoulder, another tier of systems flashed red. The fund cluster was now 42% unresponsive. One guard took Leo's badge. The other guided him toward the elevator. Leo did not resist. The operations center doors closed behind him with a hydraulic hiss. The elevator descended in silence. Outside, Chicago's February sleet hit him immediately. He had left his coat upstairs. His phone buzzed once. Automated termination notice. Access revoked. Final paycheck in 5 days. Leo turned toward the LaSalle Street station. Behind him, every window on the 22nd floor of Apex Tower burned with light. The LaSalle Street subway platform was nearly empty at 2:17 a.m. Leo descended the stairs, work boots still wet from the sleet, and slumped onto a bench near the far wall. He pulled out the crumpled printouts he had grabbed before security escorted him out. 70 pages of kernel logs showing the exact leak pattern. An elderly woman sat hunched against the station's back wall, wearing 3 layers of mismatched clothing. Her gray hair was pulled back in a neat bun. Beside her sat a battered leather satchel and newspapers weighted by a smooth riverstone. Leo watched her shiver. The coat he wore, the heavy canvas jacket Apex had issued him 3 years ago, and it was warm. He stood, walked over, and held it out. "It is going to be cold for a while." She studied him with clear, intelligent eyes, then accepted the coat with a small nod. "You are too kind." Leo returned to his bench, pulled out his turkey sandwich, and cut it in half with his keys. He offered one portion. "I already ate," he lied. She took a small bite. "Rough shift? Just lost my job for being right about something." Being right is dangerous in certain rooms. They sat in silence. Leo pulled out the printouts again, staring at the memory allocation table. The pattern was so obvious. Thousands of routines spawning cleanup threads that never completed, each one holding memory hostage, the whole system bleeding out one thread at a time. The woman gestured at the papers. "May I?" Leo handed them over. She adjusted reading glasses from her hoodie pocket, wire-rimmed, expensive-looking, and scanned the first page. Her eyes moved quickly, focused. She was reading the code. She flipped to page 14, page 19, back to 7. "Your boss ran these systems tonight?" "Tried to. Everything crashed. He blamed ransomware, then blamed me. But you know it was not ransomware." Leo nodded. "Go routine leak. Every thread spawns cleanup that hangs. The system is waiting for something that never arrives." The woman pulled a red wax crayon from her satchel and began annotating the margins. Her handwriting was small and precise. "The design pattern is wrong," she said quietly. "They are forcing synchronous cleanup in an asynchronous context. See this?" She circled a section. "Weight group coordinates completion. But in a distributed system under load, you need cascading cancellation, not blocking coordination." Leo leaned forward. "That is exactly what I told him." He paused. "Wait, how do you know Go's concurrency model?" She did not answer immediately. Instead, she sketched a flowchart in red wax on a blank margin. "Bypass the weight group entirely, use context cancellation, build a context tree. Each routine spawns with a child context from the parent. When the root cancels, the signal propagates automatically. No blocking, no leaked memory." Leo stared at the diagram. It was elegant, and it would work. "Who are you?" The woman folded the printouts carefully and handed them back. "Someone who worked on systems shaped like this a long time ago." The platform was deserted. The 2:35 a.m. train had come and gone. Neither of them boarded. Leo pulled out his Lenovo ThinkPad X220, black electrical tape patched over the cracked screen corner, and set it on the bench. The machine took 40 seconds to boot, its fan wheezing. "I do not have access to Apex's production environment anymore," Leo said. "Then we build it in isolation and prove it works." The woman pulled out her red crayon. "Do you have the runtime libraries, public Go source, and the memory profiles I pulled before they kicked me out?" "That is enough." For the next 4 hours, they worked. The woman dictated architectural changes while Leo coded. Every suggestion was precise, technical, immediately clear. "Line 63, she said, pointing at his screen. "Delete the weight group check. Replace with context.with cancel. Pass the cancellation function to each routine's defer statement. When it exits, it fires the cancel, triggering cleanup down the entire chain." Leo made the changes, then fed the kernel logs into his memory simulator. The graph ran 90 seconds, then flattened. Memory usage stayed constant. "No leaks, it works." The woman smiled, but sadness shadowed it. "Of course it works." Through the subway grating, the sleet had turned to rain. Gray dawn diluted the night. Leo saved the code to a USB drive. "We go back to Apex," Leo said, "together." The woman looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. By 9 a.m., the crisis had metastasized. Garrick Thorne stood in the Network Operations Center, staring at the monitoring wall. It was no longer red. It was black. 34% of Apex Cloud's infrastructure had stopped responding entirely. The remaining 66% ran on emergency failover protocols that would not last past noon. Arthur Vance, Apex's CEO, paced behind him. "I have Zurich on hold. They are asking if we can guarantee data integrity for $700 million in active trades. We are implementing controlled rolling restarts," Garrick said. Sweat darkened his collar despite the frigid air conditioning. "Martin's team is staging a vendor scaling patch now." Martin Wu looked up from Terminal 4, eyes bloodshot. "Sir, the rolling restart is not working. Every node we cycle comes back up, runs clean for 90 seconds, then locks again. Same memory signature." Garrick's jaw tightened. "Then deploy the patch." "We did, 10 minutes ago. It is not taking." "The memory looks clean in isolation, but in the distributed environment," Martin's voice cracked, "it is like the threads are waiting for something that never arrives." Arthur stopped pacing. "Garrick, can you solve this?" The silence stretched 3 seconds too long. "Yes, we just need—" "You do not have time." Arthur turned his phone screen toward Garrick. An email from Dr. Hans Beggar of Steinman Capital Zurich. Subject: immediate contract termination. Cause: service failure. They are pulling the $100 million and filing for damages. When the Swiss funds pull out, every American client follows within a week. Apex will be insolvent by month's end. Garrick stared at the email. "I need 6 more hours. You have one." Arthur walked out. The door hissed shut behind him. Garrick turned back to the monitoring wall. Martin and 3 senior engineers waited for direction. None came. Because Garrick Thorne was staring at a problem he genuinely did not understand. Not at the surface level, where he spoke fluently about architecture and node clusters and distributed state, but at the deep failure mode level. The Go routine architecture, the asynchronous resource release pattern. He had presented it as his modernization breakthrough 3 years ago. He had been promoted to CTO on the strength of it, but he had never understood how it failed. "Sir?" Martin's voice was tentative. "Should we roll back to last week's snapshot? The snapshot is 6 days old. We would lose every transaction since Monday. The lawsuits would be worse than the outage. Then what do you want us to do?" Garrick opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The monitoring wall flickered. 8 more nodes went black. The boardroom doors opened at 9:47 a.m. Leo Vance stepped in first, carrying his ThinkPad and the USB drive. Behind him came the woman from the subway, still wearing the layered hoodie and Leo's canvas coat. Her gray hair remained in its neat bun. She walked without hesitation, her gaze sweeping the room. Arthur Vance looked up from the head of the table. Garrick stood near the monitoring display, mid-gesture toward a failing server graph. 4 board members occupied the leather chairs. 2 security guards flanked the door. "What is this?" Garrick's voice was sharp. "Security. Remove these people." Arthur raised one hand. "Wait." He stared at the woman. Recognition moved across his face in stages. Confusion, disbelief, shock, Evelyn, she smiled faintly. Hello, Arthur. Garrick's face went pale. This woman is trespassing. She has no business. Evelyn Ross, Arthur said slowly, still staring, was our chief systems architect for 8 years. Until you had her fired, Garrick, 10 years ago. Garrick's mouth opened, closed. Leo and I rebuilt the fix for your Go routine deadlock, Evelyn said calmly. It is on this drive. We can deploy it right now and save the system. This is a desperate stunt, Garrick said. You are both? Let them deploy it, Arthur said. Sir, I must object in the strongest. Deploy it or we lose everything by noon. Arthur's voice was flat. Do you have a better option? Silence. Arthur turned to Martin. Give them temporary access. Quarantine cluster only. 3 nodes. Martin hesitated, then nodded. He crossed to Terminal 4 and entered an override authorization. Leo connected the USB to the main terminal. His old credentials were dead, but Martin's override gave him a narrow window. Isolated test environment, no production access. The compiled binary loaded in 14 seconds. Leo pulled up the deployment interface and pushed the patch to 3 quarantine nodes running synthetic load tests that mirrored the production failure. The room watched the metrics in silence. 30 seconds. Memory allocation flattened. 60 seconds. Active Go routines dropped from 11,000 to 900. 90 seconds. The crash loop stopped. The nodes held steady under full synthetic load. It is stable, Martin said quietly. Arthur did not take his eyes off the screen. Deploy to Chicago production cluster, then expand globally. Martin turned to Leo. You are authorized. Production credentials restored temporarily. Leo's hands moved across the keyboard. The deployment protocol required staged rollout. 10% of production capacity first, then expand if stable. The first wave of nodes received the patch. 15 seconds. Green metrics. Memory stable. 30 seconds. Transaction processing resumed. The deadlock signatures vanished. 60 seconds. Chicago cluster is holding, Martin said, expanding to 40% capacity. The monitoring wall began shifting from black to amber to green. Node by node, the infrastructure returned. By 10:23 a.m., Apex Cloud was fully operational. Arthur exhaled slowly. How long until we know it is stable? We should monitor for 24 hours, Evelyn said. But the architecture is sound. It will not fail the same way again. Garrick had been silent for 12 minutes. Now he stepped forward. Arthur, this is highly irregular. We do not know what code they deployed. This could be a security. Martin, Arthur said, pull the source code they deployed. Put it on screen. Martin pulled up the code repository. The patch appeared on the main display, clean, documented, professionally structured. Context cancellation, Martin said, reading through it. Cascading cleanup propagation, this is exactly what we needed. He looked at Evelyn. How did you know our architecture? Because I designed it, Evelyn said quietly. In 2015, Arthur turned to Garrick. Is that true? Garrick's expression was carefully controlled. Dr. Ross worked here a decade ago, yes, but the current Go routine architecture was developed under my direction in 2016 as part of the modernization initiative. Using her design, Leo said. That is a serious accusation, Garrick said. Leo opened his laptop. The code we just deployed includes architectural fingerprints. Specific patterns in how contexts are initialized, how error channels are buffered, even the variable naming conventions. Those patterns match the logs I pulled last night from production. He typed rapidly, pulling up a comparison view. Here is the production system's core scheduler. And here is a public repository mirror from 2014. Leo highlighted matching sections. Same cascading release structure. Same edge case handling. Even the comments are identical. Until they are not. He scrolled to a section of production code. See this? No attribution. No author comments, just code. Martin leaned forward, studying the comparison. That is the same architectural pattern. Coincidence, Garrick said. Distributed systems have common design patterns. Then explain the timestamps, Evelyn said. She pulled a folded document from her satchel, printouts of repository commits, yellowed with age. External archive mirror, timestamp 2015. My work, publicly accessible. She laid them on the conference table. And here, Leo added, pulling up a screen, are the first commits of the new architecture under Garrick's name. January 2016, 6 months after Dr. Ross was terminated. Arthur picked up the archived printouts. His face was unreadable. Garrick, he said slowly, did you use Evelyn's architecture without attribution? I adapted existing concepts, Garrick said. That is how engineering works. You build on prior art. Prior art requires attribution, Arthur said. We can also check the certificate chain, Martin said quietly. The original SSL certificates for the development environment would show who provisioned the first test clusters. Garrick's jaw tightened. This is a witch hunt. It is an audit, Arthur said, which starts now. He gestured to the 2 security guards. Garrick, you are removed from technical authority effective immediately. You will surrender your access credentials and leave the building. You are suspended pending a full intellectual property review. Arthur, you are making a mistake. The mistake was 10 years ago. Arthur's voice was cold. And we are going to find out exactly what happened. The guards moved to flank Garrick. He stared at Arthur for a long moment, then at Evelyn. She met his gaze steadily. Garrick walked toward the door. The room was silent except for his footsteps. The door closed behind him. Arthur turned to Evelyn. 10 years. Where have you been? Surviving, she said simply. Why did you not fight this? You could have sued, filed complaints. I tried. No one believed that your rising star CTO would steal from a woman 20 years his senior. She gestured at her clothing. And after 6 months without income, priorities change. Arthur closed his eyes briefly. I am sorry, I should have looked deeper. You did not know what to look for, he nodded slowly. The board convened an emergency session an hour ago, before you arrived. He paused. We would like to offer you a position. Not chief systems architect. That would mean managing a department you have been away from for 10 years. But chief technology advisor. You would have authority over architectural decisions. You would help us rebuild what was broken. Evelyn looked at the monitoring wall. Every node glowed green. The system she had designed finally running correctly. I accept, on one condition. Name it. She gestured at Leo. Leo Vance is reinstated immediately. Not as junior infrastructure engineer, as cloud systems engineer. Architecture track. He saw the problem Garrick could not see. He trusted someone with nothing when it mattered. He deserves to build systems, not just maintain them. Arthur walked to Leo. You are reinstated, and we will cover your tuition if you want to finish your degree. Leo looked stunned. Sir, I do not know what to say. Say you will help us make sure this does not happen again. Leo nodded. By 2 p.m., the operations center had emptied. The crisis team stood down. Martin Wu approached Leo at Terminal 7. You saved us, Martin said. I should have listened when you tried to explain it. You were not the one who fired me. Martin smiled tiredly. Still, thank you. He left. The floor was quiet except for the steady hum of cooling fans. Evelyn sat beside Leo's ThinkPad. The old machine now connected to $100 million of restored infrastructure. The black electrical tape still patched the screen corner. Her red wax crayon sat beside the keyboard, the tip worn down to a nub. Why did you help me? Leo asked. You could have come back alone. Claim credit yourself. Because someone tried to do the same for me once, Evelyn said quietly. A junior engineer who saw what was happening. Garrick had her transferred within a month. She picked up the crayon. I did not survive the last 10 years by taking credit. I survived by building things that work and by helping people who get silenced for being right. Through the window, Chicago's afternoon sun cut through the clouds. The storm had passed. Leo looked at the monitoring wall. Every node green, stable, secure. 10 years is a long time, he said. It is, and it cannot be repaired in one day. Evelyn placed the red crayon on the desk beside the battered laptop. But we can start, she stood. Let's get to work.